Welcome to the fourth episode of our Why LKC Medicine podcast, where we turn the spotlight on LKC Medicine's MBBS program. I'm your host, Chloe Teo, a LKC Medicine Year 1 student. We'll be talking about two important aspects of our learning today, practical skills and clinical communications. I will let our guests today, the content experts, explain more about these two areas. Please welcome Sister Ramani Saravanan, our Senior Assistant Director and Lead for Clinical Procedures, and Dr. Tanya Tierney, Assistant Dean for Clinical Communications.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, my name is Ramani, as what Khalid has mentioned. Students call me Sister Ramani as I was a nurse educator before joining LKC Medicine. I am also responsible for the development and delivery of clinical procedures training at LKC Medicine. Practical skills training is clinical procedures stringed together with 21st century skills to produce better doctors with profound skills, psychomotor coordination, and precision. In other words, skills are specific learned abilities that students perform in a specific setting in order to accomplish a predefined desired result. And on the other end, we also train our students to be competent, which combines skills, knowledge, behavior, attitude to exercise confidence and stress tolerance. So this prepares the medical students to be accustomed to the rapidly changing healthcare landscape. And of course, critical, creative thinking and problem-solving skills are sharpened during these skills training sessions. So that's for me. Now I'll hand over to Dr. Tanya.
Thanks, Ramani. Hi, so I'm Dr. Tanya Tierney. I'm originally from the UK. I was the lead for clinical communication at Imperial College before moving to Singapore in 2012 as part of the team to set up LKC Medicine. I'm one of the few remaining people from right at the very start of the school who came over from Imperial. So in the clinical communication teaching, it's really about building on the skills that you've been using your entire life, communicating with people and thinking about how they apply in a consultation setting, how you build rapport with patients, how you find out what's going on with that patient and how you explain to their diagnosis and shared decisions and things like that. So the curriculum mostly works through experiential learning. We work with simulated patients who are people with an interest in acting and teaching who role play as patients for students to practice their skills with and to give them feedback. And the curriculum is designed to start right at the very beginning with just getting the confidence to walk up to a patient and say hello, all the way through the 5 years to really complex skills towards the end of the curriculum.
Thank you so much, Sister Ramani and Dr. Tanya. So I'm sure our listeners are interested to know, so what do they specifically learn during your lessons?
Shall I go first for this one?
Yeah.
So often when people think about communication skills teaching, the first thing that comes to their mind is breaking bad news. Everyone always thinks, okay, that I'm going to learn how to tell a patient they have cancer or that their husband has died. And it is true, those really challenging skills are taught as part of our program, but not until year 4. There's a lot that needs to be done before that. As I mentioned before, students often are quite nervous about just approaching a patient, saying hello and asking them, about why they've come to the polyclinic today. So we start with the really basic skills. And it's as much to build confidence as it is to build competence, to have the self-awareness and be able to go sit with a patient, build rapport with them and encourage them to their story. I think if I'm asked what is the most important skill that students learn, I think it has to be listening, because the ability to really hear what the patient is saying and not just the words, but the concern behind those words is really what we're looking for, because that is what allows the patient to really feel heard and felt and understood. One of our mission statements is doctors that you and I would like caring for us, and I think that is truly in the heart of the way we teach. When we're talking about listening, I often use the phrase compassionate curiosity, which defines how our students listen. So we start in year 1 with just kind of getting that going. We work through years 1 and 2 mostly with history taking. So by the end of year 2, students are able to really find out what's going on with the patient, and starting the clinical reasoning is just starting to fall into place. Moving into years 3 and 4, this is where we start information sharing. So starting to explain things to patients, work with the patients for shared decision making, motivational interviewing. And this is where we also have the sharing difficult news, managing strong emotions with those kind of sessions. And by year 5, it's really a case of bringing everything together and ensuring our students are ready for practice before they graduate.
Honestly, I feel like during my clinical communications classes, I feel like I'm being let in on a secret that I never knew. Like all the things that we learned, I can see my doctors doing that, but I never knew that it was taught. I just thought they were just inherently doctors. I think it was very interesting because I'm being let in on like a secret trick that was taught to every doctor.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Chloe. That really means a lot to me. It's very true. I mean, in the history of communication skills teaching, it was something that never was taught. It was something that, and students were expected to pick up these skills by watching their seniors, but they hadn't been taught either. So, over the history of medical education, it moved from, should we have an hour's lecture on bedside manner, to what it is now, which is a fundamental vertical theme that runs through the entire curriculum, because it's so inherent in everything that doctors do.
Before I joined medical school, I obviously had a great admiration for doctors, but now learning what they have to learn itself has shared a lot of light on really how much respect I have for these doctors. Okay, Sister Ramani, so what do we learn in clinical skills sessions?
At LKCMedicine, we must provide an education that allows the newly qualified doctors to meet all the outcomes that is required in the hospital. So we work as what is required from our Ministry of Health. Basically, during skill sessions, we cover assessment of patient needs, diagnostic procedures, and patient care. So students are exposed to different patient-based scenarios and for example, in year 1, infection control practices and prevention of infection transmission during their first lesson in year 1, which is very important in today's context. And also, they are also taught on administering vaccination, drawing blood, and performing CPR are some of the skills that's included in the curriculum. So we start skills training early in the year so that they actually revisit the skills along the MBBS course, and they become more qualified when they actually pass out as doctors, and they have become competent professionals to perform or to deliver safe patient care and protect themselves as well as patients. So Holly, maybe you would like to share with us what are the interesting aspects that you have learned during your year 1 skills?
So far, we've learned wound dressing, hand washing, there is the diabetes finger prick one. And honestly, I would like to admit that at first, when we go into these sessions, it feels really fun because we are experiencing these clinical skills for the first time. But it's only halfway through when I'm actually doing it that I realize it's not just a simulation, like when we download apps to play how to become a doctor. But we are actually doing this to learn how to become a doctor for real in our careers next time. I think what's been the most fun for me, was just the finger prick one, because we didn't just get to experience what it's like to perform procedures on other people. We also got to experience how it felt like ourselves to be pricked for this blood glucose testing. And I think that was a very important thing that we learned during these clinical skills. And clinical communications as well, how these patients feel when they're on the receiving end.
It's a very interesting point that you actually said, because during blood glucose measurement, when you prick, in the past years, I realized that some students are not, they don't commonly see blood. And that was an introduction to them, because they know that perhaps when they go for a clinical attachment, you're bound to see blood, so body fluids. So that will actually make them aware of what is being expected. At that point of time, we are able to identify students who actually have certain fear, and then we are able to provide the proper education as well as counseling.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, because I have some juniors who really want to become doctors, but they tell me, oh my gosh, Chloe, but I'm so scared of blood. How do I become a doctor if I'm scared of blood? And I try to assure them I have classmates around me who are afraid of blood as well. But my seniors always assure me that the school prepares them adequately. So by the time they graduate, they are comfortable with it, and they know oh, this is something that to do with my profession. So I have to be professional about it, and they have enough confidence to deal with it when they actually see it.
Thanks, Chloe. Thanks for sharing.
So the next question is the biggest question, the elephant in the room, right? So how has COVID-19 affected the learning experience in LKC Medicine?
So I think if I speak for communication first, so when circuit breaker hit last year, I think I had a session booked the following week, and at the time, Zoom was something that was quite new to us. We didn't have the same familiarity we have with it now. So it took a little while to work out, oh my goodness, how on earth am I going to teach communication skills remotely? So we sat back and planned, and the way we do this in Zoom is really to think about what are the measures we take with face-to-face teaching and how do we replicate them in an online platform. So in face-to-face, our students work in small groups of 6 with a facilitator, and each of them will interview a simulated patient in a private room whilst being watched on video by the rest of their team and a clinical facilitator. And then they will regroup to give feedback. So that sense of privacy is really important while the interview is going ahead. So what we did was we used breakout rooms, and we put each team of students in a breakout room with their facilitator and the simulated patient. Whilst the role play was going ahead, everyone else would turn off their camera and video, and that gave a sense for the student and for the simulated patients of just being in that room next door. What we discovered once we were doing it is not just this is a compromise and we are doing our best to replicate what we can when we can't be face to face. What we discovered is we were actually teaching another set of skills that are really important, and that was the skills of consulting in telemedicine, which is become such an important part of medicine at the moment. And in fact, what we have done, even when we were face to face back in the building, was retain one session in year 2 where we specifically look at telemedicine skills. So we are doing a remote session as part of our curriculum now, even when we don't have to. One of the things we were very conscious of with everyone being at home is that, role play it's a mode of learning that can make students feel a little bit vulnerable because you're having to perform in front of your friends. So psychological safety is something that's very important to us. So we reminded the students about just taking care of themselves if they'd had a role play that didn't go quite as they wanted it to reach out to their friends, to be able to contact faculty. And also for the simulated patients themselves, that some of the roles they play are quite emotionally activating. So as well as looking after our students, we're very conscious of looking after the simulated patients as well.
Well, I didn't know that it came with so many difficulties, right? But honestly, I'm so grateful for the school and for you, Dr. Tanya, because I hear that you really put in a lot of effort in resourcing and searching for these SPs, especially when it comes to things like the foreign language session. So I actually heard from my seniors, like some of them actually put down that they wanted to practice sign language and taking history in sign language. And you actually took the effort to go and find a facilitator and SP for that. And I thought that was really, really very cool.
It's one of the challenges I set myself with that session. So the medical language course is a little sub-course within communication where we look at language barrier. So to make that work, of course, I need to know the linguistic backgrounds of all my students so that if a patient speaks Cantonese, that the student can't understand Cantonese, for example. So they're relying on the simulated patient for the interpretation. So the SPs love doing that because they work in pairs and those dynamics play out in a really fun way. And then the session you were referring to is where I do a survey. I ask the students, what language or dialect do you want to work in for this session? There's always a range of the Chinese dialects and a little bit of Tamil and Hindi and Malay. And then occasionally a student will request a language which puts me on my toes a little bit. And that is my challenge to myself. If it is at all possible, I will make it happen. So we've had students consulting in French, Japanese, and yes, this year we did have 3 students consulting in Singapore Sign Language. So I had to go back and re-survey all the simulated patients as well and say, hey guys, I need SPs who can sign, who can come and do this session. And it was really, really fascinating to watch.
Honestly, I'm so excited for that session. Sister Ramani, so how has COVID-19 affected our clinical skills sessions?
But before I go there, I think, Tanya, when I hear you, I can see that lots of effort put into this session. And I too enjoy actually observing those sessions. In the past, when we have sessions at Bukit Batok Polyclinic, Tanya used to bring a lot of SPs, and sometimes we also have kids as simulated patients. So it's always fun to see kids running around and how the medical students handle those kids too. So that's very interesting. Okay, now back to skills, how this has been affected. You will agree with me that COVID-19 pandemic has drastically changed the way we live, work, and also learn. And clinical procedure skills training at LKC Medicine is no exception. The lab activities are not the same, and we have to conduct usually a face-to-face session because everything requires consumables and equipment. All safe management measures are observed at all times. So we have to remind our students sometimes to have 1 meter distancing, although they get too engrossed and they come together to observe each other, and also to wear face masks at all times. And most staff, such as skills facilitators and support team who come in close contact with the students, have gone through the vaccination exercise. So small group practical sessions are conducted as an advantage because we are able to give them more attention. And of course, we are able to give a lot of guidance and teaching because it's a small group. So these are the ways that I think we are having a new learning strategies here to actually get connected with our students. And apart from my skills facilitator role, I'm also a senior house tutor of Brilliant House. So the house tutors at LKC Medicine also continue to work with students during the difficult period, providing them with the support, and they are more committed to them than ever.
Honestly, I was a bit bummed that our suturing session was pushed back, I think, because I was so excited for that. But I understand that it will be rescheduled, right? Like our seniors, even though they had their session pushed back as well, but eventually they did learn it.
Yes, what I did last year was that I actually brought them all on a weekend to give them an introduction and have some hands-on, and then I rearranged with the tutors, and my tutors are made up of clinicians, nurses, phlebotomists, surgeons. So according to the specific skill, I will invite these facilitators. For this particular wound closure session, I actually invite surgeons. So I need to reschedule and bring them back again so that they can actually share their experiences, their best practices with the students. So you can actually expect one to happen in the next AY when you're in year 2. Not to worry, we will still have wound closure.
Really fun. And it's very interesting to note that like we are really learning from the best of the best in these skills, right? Learning from the surgeons. So okay, now it's time to be very honest. So Sister Ramani and Dr. Tanya, what is it really like to interact with our students during and after class?
It's awesome. I have to say I really love it. I mean, I had years of experience of teaching in London, but my experience since moving to LKC, I think because our school is such a close-knit community, I really value the time I spend with students, either in the classroom teaching or my own tutees. I'm a senior house tutor for Marie Curie House. So it's, I think it keeps me young because I may be, aging on the outside, but I'm still 21 in here.
No, as beautiful as ever.
Yeah, I strongly believe that if you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. And I truly love what I do. So, the reason that I put so much into making the learning experience fun as well as valuable is because I love it. And it's really rewarding when I see the students progressing. When I meet the year 4s again, and of course I've seen them a little bit since then, but when I see the way those skills have developed and they've incorporated everything else they've learned, the content and the skill with which they consult by the time they get to year 4, it's incredible. And then I hear what the workplaces are saying about our graduates. One of the things that we had on one of our outreach slides in the very beginning of the school, before the school even opened, was, our vision is that you will recognize an LKC graduate by the way they interact with patients. And the feedback that we get is that you can recognize an LKC graduate by the way they interact, not only with patients, but the way they interact with their colleagues as well. And that is so heartwarming to get that feedback and to know that I've sort of just had a little bit of influence in that journey. It makes me very proud.
I think you have more than just a little influence. Being humble. Sister Ramani, what about you?
For me, I think before I joined LKC Medicine, I was a nursing lecturer. Then and now I got the privilege to mix with young people. So my students who are young adults, and I enjoy interacting with them, and because they react in various ways, we have a professional yet friendly relationship where we both know the boundaries and limits. At the start of my session as their teacher, I set reasonable rules which they follow. And after lessons, we talk about life and some general stuff. I like to listen to them talk. So when I speak to students, I get familiar with their changing trends and customs and know their latest fashions and latest music. Some of them have treated me to lunch and dinners even after they have graduated. I think it's a blessing. They acknowledge the extra sessions that my team and I conduct for them, and they get snacks, sometimes bubble teas for all of us. So thanks to them. And I've accompanied some students to Christian Medical College, India in the past when things were much settled, the other time. So students are amazing and they are so adaptable and cooperative. And that's the time where I get to know them on a personal note. I can recall one incident. There was once I actually bargained with a taxi driver who refused to lower the taxi fare at Vellore, India, to speak the same language as me. He refused totally. One of the students, a non-Indian who managed to speak bits of Tamil, managed to get a fair deal as he impressed the taxi driver. So that was amusing that we were exchanging looks and we were like thinking, wow, he was better bargaining talent than me. And he was very good. So sometimes students give me parenting tips, such as how not to stress my daughters during their exams. They also recommend good places to dine to celebrate Valentine's Day with my husband. So I should say I've met good friends along the way.
Ramani, can I just give you a shout out? You made reference to extra sessions there, and you really do go above and beyond the call of duty, especially coming up to exams time. The number of times I hear that you're in work on a Saturday or an evening running extra sessions, practice sessions for students in the run up to the OSCEs, above and beyond this call of duty.
Yeah, I'm honestly amazed by how much effort that goes into these sessions. Like every time I go to class, I'm always reminded that these sessions take a lot of time. And it's not like someone tells us, oh, you have to appreciate this because your content experts spend a lot of time on this. But it's just, you can see it in the detail in every little step and procedure that, oh, wow, the school really thought of us and thought of how to prepare us for the working world. And it's not just for learning about platitudes or just learning skills in theory. So I think that's really, really cool. And honestly, I personally, as a student, I love interacting with the faculty. They are so open-minded and so caring for us students. As a student, I really feel very supported. And no matter what I go through, I know that at least I can approach the faculty for help. And we have a very professional relationship, as Sister Ramani said, but also we can also joke around and have fun as well during classes. And I think that's super amazing. And that's kind of the culture in LKC here.
Yeah, it is, and it is deliberately the culture because, it's not just what we teach you that turns you into the doctors that you will become. It's the culture we create within the school, and we strongly believe that, how we care for you and how we interact with you is such an important part in how you will interact with your colleagues and your patients in the future. So it's really important.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tanya and Sister Ramani. So I think this marks the end of our podcast. Thank you for your time today. And to those of you listening into the podcast, thank you for tuning in until now. And we hope you've learned more about what we learned here. And we hope you join us for the LKC Medicine experience too. So remember to tune in again soon for our next episode, and we'll see you again. Thank you so much.